role, how to give the authorizations to the particular user, how to unlock the user, how to lock the user, how to change the password, reset, bulk user creations. So then authorizations, PFCG. So this kind of things we'll discuss today as part of the basic scope. Why? Because as you know, every organization nowadays, there is a separate dedicated security team. They will take care of the security authorizations, and so they will take care of all those things here, right? So here we will in the security. So why SAP in SAP system security is required here, right? So to protecting the data from unauthorized access, unauthorized users. Suppose you are the basis guy, then you have the access to the security above developments and everything, right? But you should not do as per the SOW means separate as per the agreement. You should not do the security work and development work, functional work. You are the basis consultant means you should have only access to the basis related transaction codes only, not for other. So developer only access to the development related transaction codes. Security only user creation roles related transaction code you need access, not for others. So we have to suppose if we try to access any other transaction code, you should get you are not authorized, something like that. You should get the message, right? So the system authorization concept is is protecting the SAP system from running transactions or program from protecting from unauthorized access or unauthorized users. So we should not allow users to execute the transactions and programs in the SAP system until they have defined the authorization. So if you are the valid person, you are the valid basis user, you can execute the basis related transaction codes, right? If you are not the valid person, you should not execute those things here. Why? Because it's a security violation in the organization, right? So, and also to make sure your system more secure and implement the strong authorization, we always have a review the authorization plans, display access, security requirement, company policies, all those things we need to do that one here, right? So we have the user and role, then authorization here, right? These are the three concepts here, right? So user, normally our business users or our technical users, we. So role will define, role will tell, so who is this user? If you assign this role to the user, whatever the role having the authorizations, whatever the transaction codes you have given in the role, that user can only perform, that user can only perform the related activities only. If the role says you have to perform all, then user can perform the all the authorizations, right? All the authorization. So we have to we have to create it. Then authorizations we have to assign to the user role. This role we have to assign to the user. So that is the navigation here, right? So that based upon the role and authorization, the user can perform the respective activities in the system, respective activities in the system. So that is the reason whenever you have, so whenever the new projects or new system is built, the first time the security team will build the role in the PFCG transaction code. So for this one, first of all, role we have to identify it here. For basis team, what is the role? For security, what is the role? So then, so users, business users, what is the role? Right? Developers, what is the role? The functional, what is the role? Right? So they have to create the roles here. So role creation we have to perform in the PFCG transaction code. So in the PFCG transaction code, we have to create the role. Role we have to create it here, right? SAP role creation we have to do it in the PFCG. So we have to do it here. So that we can create the authorization data automatically based upon the function menu function. We can create the authorization. We can create it here, right? Then we can assign this role to the user, right? So you can create the user creation is only for authenticating the user to the SAP system, right? So user creation we can perform in the SAP system in Su01 transaction code. In Su01 transaction code we can perform it. In Su01 transaction code we can perform the users here. If we go to the Su01 transaction code, right? If you go to the Su01 is for the user creation. Su01 is for the user creation. User creation, we have to do it in the Su01 transaction code. Then mass user creation, we have to perform in the Su10 here, right? So these three transaction codes are very useful here, right? So user, suppose you are creating a one user called the, suppose like demo one user you are creating. So just click on the create button, or you can also copy the user from so other users as well here, right? So whatever the other user having the roles, you can also copy it, or just click on the create button here, right? So whenever you click on the create button, there is a form will open here. Here we need to maintain the what is this user and what is the last name of the user here. So then what is the first name, what is the language, so whatever you can maintain it, mandatory details, email address. So some of the details as much as possible you can enter the details here. So alias name is not required. Then type of the user here, they are the 5 types of users are in SAP. Yeah, so 5 types of users in SAP we can create it here, right? One is the dialogue users. Dialogue users means we humans. Humans are the dialogue user who will log into the SAP system with the user ID and password. We are the dialogue users, right? Interactive. The individual users interactive in the system. They can access client work. So all those things we can perform it. As a dialogue mode, we are logged into the SAP system. Dialogue work processor taking care of our request. Then we are the dialogue users, right? Dialogue users here. So those users are called the dialogue user. Suppose you are creating a user for the one of the person, human, or so then that time you can use the dialogue user. So then next one is the service user. Service user. Service user means this is used to perform the so some of the so service user means so you cannot reset the password, means some service level we can use it here, means we can perform the interactive system access to perform the some of the predetermined tasks in the like catalogs, displays, multiple login allowed. So this kind of things, maybe suppose example basis user. So all the people are using the basis user. Why? Because multiple users are logging with the basis user, which means the service user. Service level we will use this user, service user. Though that user is using by the all the users. So that is not the human user. Service user is a different user. Service level we will use it. So if you are creating the user is like a service user, then we can use the service user. We can select as a service user here. The third one is called the system user. System user. System user is used to perform the some transports, background jobs, some of the transports, background jobs, ALE, workflows. So those kind of things that is called the system user. In the job level, we are maintaining the user. If that user is locked, then all the jobs will fail, right? That is the reason that time we will use the system user, batch users. We have to use it in the systems, right? So communication communication, RFC destinations, right? RFC, RFC modules, RFC functional. So this time we will use the RFC. Suppose if you want to maintain the users in the RFC destinations, Then we can use the communication user. Then reference user here, ref user, reference user. Reference user means a reference user is not used for login to the system, but this user is used to provide the additional authorizations. So by using this reference user, he can perform the other activities in the system here. So other activities in the system here, reference user, rare cases reference users are there. They are the 5 types of users in SAP system here, right? These are the 5 types. So you are creating the dialog user, then you have to reset the password. You have to reset the password here. I am resetting the giving the password, initial password. Then, so what is the user groups here? User groups. User means this user is, we have to create the multiple groups here, like super user group, basis group, development group. So whatever the groups, you have to create the groups. So say we have to create the group, or you can just ignore it otherwise. So validity from and date. When is this user? Is the lifelong user he can access, or only until tomorrow he has to access the system here. So until tomorrow he has to access the system, right? Then you can set the validity period end. Then SNC is not required. Defaults, maybe that is also not required. Maybe if you want, you can set it out. So then, so parameters, that is also not required. So only roles. Roles are the very important here. Role. So what type of activities he has to do? This is the role tab here. So he can perform just log on data, initial password reset and everything. Then roles tab. These 2 tabs are the mandatory field here. So role, what type of role he has to perform, right? What type of transaction he has to execute. Then click on the save button. Without assigning the role, just click on the save button here. The user will be created here. Then you can log into the system with the demo 1, right? So demo 1, you can log into the system, right? User is created, right? Just you can log into the, so this is a dialog user. So then it will ask the reset the password, reset the password here. Yes, you can reset the password of your system. Then we can reset the password. So then password reset is done. So then he logged into the system, but he only connected to the system. He is logged into the system, but he is trying to access any one of the transaction code. He says that you are not authorized person. You are not the authorized person. You are not the authorized person. Why? So why you are getting this type of errors? Why? Because you created only users. User only you created, but there are no role assigned. So the role will tell you what activities you have to perform. Role will restrict you to perform the, so some of the tasks in the system. It will restrict, but no role. But this user is basis user or development user or level 1 monitoring user. Which user? So the respective role you have to assign it here, right? But respective role you have to assign it means role we have to create it here. Role we have to create it in the systems. So by using the PFCG transaction code, we can create the role maintenance. We can create it here. Role. So here we have to create the role. Suppose like always we will start the role creation. Standard roles already there in the SAP system. Standard roles already with SAP star. Standard roles already there with SAP star. You have the by default at the as part of the installation, you will get the standard roles in SAP. These are the standard roles. Standard means by default you will get. You can utilize these roles to assign to the user. Otherwise, suppose like the user we are creating, suppose like here you can see the role that is the, suppose like you are creating the role for AS system audit users, then auditor related roles you can assign it. The user you are creating is a system administrator, then you can assign the basis administrator role, right? So you can assign the standard roles you can assign it. Is the DB administrator, DB admin user, you can assign it, right? The role are starting from SAP, then those are the SAP standard role. It will come as part of the installation, right? You can assign these roles. You can utilize this role here. Is the desktop application engineer, then this we can assign the desktop application. You have the roles are there here, but you can assign it. Sir, I don't want to use the standard role. I want to create my own role here, right? Then you can just do Z underscore. So basis. So monitoring. He has to do the monitoring. Then just create the monitoring. He's a level one guy. You don't want to give the all the transaction code. Then click on the create single role. Single role means single role you are creating. Composite role means collection of single roles we will club into the one composite role, right? Single role. So here, so what type of description? Monitoring, like that is normal. Any description you can give it here. So menu, go to the menu here. Role creating you are doing here. Role creation you are doing here. In the menu, you can start assigning the transactions here, right? So you can know what transaction he has to perform. Monitoring means ST22, one transaction code. Then SM21 one transaction code, SM50 one transaction code, then SM51 one transaction code, then SU53 one transaction code, authorization objects checking and everything. Then what the fresher will do, like the monitoring team, he will monitor the dumps, okay, SM21, SM13. So then SM12, SM14, SM14. So you can perform all those things. You can assign the authorizations here, right? You can assign the all the transaction code access to the this user. You can assign it to the here, right? You assign it. So not only transaction codes, you can also assign the so some of the web developer applications, reports, whatever you want to BW query, whatever you want to assign, you can assign to the users, right? Just save it. Just save it here. So role saved, role created. Only role you have created, only created the role. Only role creation is done, right? So this role you can assign to the this user, right? So what is the role? So only role creation is done, right? Role creation is done here. Only role creation means role creation is done. But what about the authorization objects here? But role creation is done. Okay, let me show you. Role creation is done. You assign this role to the user, then he can perform the respective authorization. Okay, then log into the user, whatever the user you are using here, demo one. Okay, then password. Then you enter the ST22, no authorization, SM21, no authorization, right? SM50, no authorization. Sir, even though you assigned the roles, even though you assigned the roles, role you created, you assigned all the transaction codes to the role, then this role you have assigned to the user, then why is not able to still perform the so transactions? Why is not able to perform the transactions here, right? Why is unable to execute all those things here? So why means you created the role and you assigned the transaction, but what about the authorization? What about the authorization? So this authorizations will tell you whether you can able to act, you can generate the profile, go back, then change the authorization data. Then here, what you have to do, you need to you need to so whether that person is required the display access or execute access or what is required. So that authorizations we have to assign it here, that authorization. So you assigned this transaction codes to the user, that role you have assigned to the user, so that is fine. But whether he can able to what level access he can execute it here, what level access you can execute it here, right? So then now authorizations. So we need to find out the authorization objects. We go to the SU22 or SU24, I think we can find out the each transaction code. There is a respective authorization object. Each transaction code there is a respective authorization object here, right? So that we can do it here, right? Authorization object. So we have to find out the authorization object for so that transaction code. You have assigned multiple roles, right? but what is the authorization object, right? Authorization object for the particular T code we need to check. So once it is loaded, so here, so normally in Su20 or we can find out the authorization objects. So here we can just enter the transaction code, what transaction codes you have to. So you have here, right? SM12, then SM13, SM12, then SM13, then ST22, then so SM21, then SM50, then SM51. These are the transactions you have, right? So here you need to find out the authorization object here. So just click on the execute button here. So it will display the information here, right? Authorization values. It will display the authorizations. So otherwise, there is so more things are there to find out what is the authorization object for each and everything. So you will get the information here. You will get the information here. Or we can also see here, so what is the authorization object here, right? So this is the authorization object s underscore ADMI FND system authorizations, right? So if you want to table, so if you want to admin workbench, authorization for file access, data sets, so the many things are there here. If you want to authorization for GUI activities here, you want to transports related these authorization objects here, right? Suppose like system authorizations, right? SM and S underscore EDMI field here. So then you can go to the here, click on manually. So then just authorization object, click on the OK button. Then here you can set the authorization. Here you can set the whether you require the full access, display access, what level access you want to assign, just you can provide it here. So you want to what level of authorizations you want to assign to the user. So some of the like basis audit, okay, this authorization, display access he required. So then what other access here? Here a lot of things are there. So you can check it out here, whatever you want to assign. So these are the activities here, right? So system messages SM02, SM21, then SP01 also is required. So then what is required? ST22 also required, SM13, ST13. Then so just see what authorizations you required. Unix commands also you required. Okay, you assign these things, you assign it to the user, then save it. So which means you are assigning these authorizations, he has to execute like that. You are assigning to the authorization object. So these objects you have assigned. So authorization object is very important here. Authorization object is very important. Done. Then you can assign the role, this role to the user. You already assigned it. So, but let me check once again. Demo 1. Okay. Save. User comparison. Complete the comparison. User comparison is done. Okay, green. It should become green. Workflow is not required, right? It's done. So now this is a user. Previously you used it to perform here. Now you are able to execute the transaction, but you are facing the authorization error after entering the transaction. Then SM21, you see, you are able to open the SM21 transaction code. Then what is that? So SM13. So you are able to enter the SM13, then SM14, right? So then SM50, so SM50, then SU53. So you are able to execute these transactions. How? You created the role, you created the user, role you created, you assign the transactions, then you assign it to the user. But even though you faced the authorization errors, but when you assign the authorization object, the respective authorization object to the people, then you can able to access the execute the transactions code here. Then who is restricting here? What is being restricted here? Here, so your authorization authorization object is restricting here, authorization object here. So in the here we can find out multiple ways, like in a ST20, so in SU22 or I think SU21 also we can find out the authorization object. SU21, SU22 and 24, 25 also we can find out the authorization object for the respective. You don't need on deep level, but here the maintain the authorization objects here. So we can also the basis administration related. Basis administration related. So what are the authorization objects? Here also you will get the, so suppose like user admin, basis person wants to create the user, you need this authorization object here. So some archiving related user required this one here, right? So then, so each area, each module, there is a respective authorization scripting and file access data sets. Then suppose like field values, role checks, or transactions in roles. So you have the respective roles are there here. So suppose like he has to execute the framework related things. So you can see whatever he wants to perform, all these authorization objects are there here, right? We can assign the respective basis central function. What is the authorization objects, right? So basis, now suppose like you are creating a BPC user or developer user here, right? Developer. So developer, development environment here, developer user. And then you can see the developer means development workbench and all those things, what is required for the developers. So you can find out the authorization object, respective authorization object here, right? SC21 or 22. I think 24 also we can find out. Yes, 24. Suppose like if you enter the SC22, execute, then it will give you the information like what transaction code, SC21, 22, 24. So each transaction code, there is a respective object is there. So we can find out the respective object here. Respective object we can find out here. Right? Respective object we can find out here. Right? So that is the, so one thing we can find out here. Right? So role will tell you what activities you have to perform and all those things here. So in PFCG, we have to create that role here. In PFCG, we have to create that role here, right? Role creation we have to done. Then authorizations and user we have to assign, one user we have to assign here, right? There's a more level security also we can do it, the HR level security, organization level, company level security. So, but you don't need that much of security as a basis consultant. So pure security team is there. So it kind of small basic related information. So, but there is a GRC security, HR security, BPC securities are there. It's a separate huge topics. Those are right. So, but this level of information, fine. How to create the user, right? How to create the authorization object, how to PFCG role and everything. So PFCG, we can create the role we can create in the PFCG here, right? So PFCG, we can create the role, single role. Suppose like if you want to create the composite role, you can create the composite role. Then, so multiple single roles we can assign to the composite roles. That is also composite roles here, right? So that is the role creation. Actually, actually, we never get access to the SE01 PFCG. That is the main thing. Only maybe small companies, they may get it out, but larger companies, we have the separate security team to manage all those things here, right? So SU01 is the transaction code to create the user. Suppose if you want to lock the user is locked due to the incorrect password or multiple times, or you can also lock the user here. So you can also lock the user here. You can see user is locked. You have locked the user here, right? Then we can also unlock it. Unlock. So you can also reset the password, right? You can also copy the user. So right. So you can also delete. Suppose like with the basis user, we are performing all the activities. Why? Why? Because there is a all there is a s underscore all role we created. S underscore all the role we created. Why? Where is that? Yeah. Here s underscore all. There is a profile. So which means super user. We can perform all the access. Whatever you want, we can perform everything in the system. Right? That's why we have the all. We are able to access everything. But real time, you won't get all access. Only limited access, you will get it out in the systems. Here we can access the development functional related, but real time you won't access. You will get the authorization errors. To find out the authorization error, you need to go to the SU53 is the transaction code. Here we can find out the authorization error for the respective user here, right? Respective user. Suppose like you are trying to access, you have only limited access here. Suppose like if you are trying to access the SE11, you face the authorization error. Then if you go to the SU53 here, SE11 means what is missing here, right? So you have the access to the this transaction code SE11, then this authorization option S underscore T code access is missing here, right? So here the authorization check is failed. It will display the authorization check. Then again you have to go to the PFCG. So then either you in the same transaction code or different transaction code, you can go to the here authorization, then change the authorization data. So here you can add the here add the one more authorization subject S underscore T code, S underscore T code, you can add it. Why? Because SE11 you are unable to access. Then in this SE11 transaction code, so in the SE11, SE11. So SE11. So then you need to properly check what exactly is missing here, what exactly the value is missing here. So SE11, so the SE development related thing here. Then again you need the S underscore develop object is required. S underscore development object is required here. So then again you need to go to the PFCG. So then you need to add the S underscore develop object. You need to provide the authorization, right? So multiple things we are doing here, right? So it's not easy. So just one time. So that's why security team, before they create the business users, they have to do lot of work here. Roles creation, access, what type of authorization they need to thoroughly check with the customer. Then they need to define the roles. Then once they define the role, whenever the user joins in the organization, they will go to the SE01 transaction code, SE01 transaction code, then they can create the all those things, they can create it here. Though they can create the all those things, they can access it here. That's what they can perform it in the systems, right? That is the role. Suppose if you want to create the mass users, sir, there are hundreds of users are there, then how can I create? Then demo 2, then demo 2, demo 3, so like demo 4, so demo 5. There the hundreds of users are joined in the organization. We want to create the password, everything one by one, it will take time. Then just you can click on the uh, create button here. Then, so if you want to set the passwords or you want to assign the role to the all the users one at a shot, one at a shot here, suppose like Z underscore basis monitoring, right? So then click on the save button here. Then all the users will be created at one single shot. In the single shot, mass users will be created here, with including their passwords also will be reset, right? So the password, generated password for demo2 user, this is the password. So demo2 user created, demo3 user created, demo4 user created, role added, user created, role added, everything is done, right? Everything is password generated, role, all those things are done. This is the password for users, right? This is the password also created. You don't need to create the password. Just share this detail to the user, then he can able to access. This is the password. Demo2. System generated. System generated means it will clearly generate the all those things here, which means you can log into the NW1 system, the demo2, then password, then you can reset the password here. Then demo2 user, he can perform whatever he want, he can perform the access, right? He can able to access all those things. So because you created the mass users and you assigned the passwords also, right? Then that is the mass user creation, right? If you want to lock all the users, we can also lock the users here, right? All the users we can lock it. So user is all the users we can lock it here. That is also possible. If you want to unlock, if you want to change the password, so whatever you want, you can do it for all, right? Also, yeah, these are the mass user creation, user role, and suppose if we want to lock all the users during the maintenance activity time, so we will lock the all the users. That is called the EWZ5 is the transaction code. EWZ5. I don't think here. No, maybe it is there in the PCC systems. EWZ5 is the transaction code. We can lock, unlock the mass users. So all users we can lock it. All users we can lock it in single shot. In single shot, we can lock the all the users. That is also possible here. So that's possible. We can do that one. All users we can lock it here. Okay. Single mass users locking we can do EWZ5 here. Okay. That is the locking the users. Unlocking the users, roles, authorization objects. Suppose if you want to find out SUIM is the transaction code. So not here. Suppose like SUIM is the transaction code. We want to find out, we want to find out which user has this roles. SUIM will give the some user information. Suppose I want to find out the who was the last logon date and password change. Then we can get the all the user information and all the details here, right? So which user has done the password reset, who are the users are logging to the SAP system, when was the last login, all are logging to the in this month only, last logon date. So then these users are not in use, means they are not logging to the system, they are not reset the password and everything. This user is locked, right? So total 52 users. Also, which user has unsuccessful logon? Who are logged into the unsuccessful means incorrectly they are logged into the SAP system. So only DDIC user has the locked user, failed logons, incorrect password. Okay. So then you want to find out the search the roles, which user has this role. So this transaction code, suppose like Z underscore basic monitoring, Z underscore basis monitoring. Which user has these roles? What are the users having these roles here, right? So this all the information will be displayed here, right? So authorizations data and everything. So what user having the transaction code, executable users? So which user has access to the, so suppose like basis user, what has his transactions? Like what transactions he has access. So SUIM will give you the some information about the SUM will give you the some information about the all the things here, right? All the things and everything in the system. So SUM, someone asking the some information, SUIM will give you the overall switch one. Overall switch one, it will give you the information. Okay. So that is about the users. Now what you can do, you can create your own user and only use that user to log into the SAP systems, right? Here everybody has, you have, the users, right? You can log in so that in this way you can come to know who is doing what. If you go to the L08, you can see the all the user sessions and everything here, right? Who is doing what and everything you can come to know here, right? The user load and everything here. You all are logging with the basis user means, so no, there is nothing much load here, right? So that's you can plan it, right? Every user, you can use basis user, create the your individual user, then you can use your user to log into the systems. Okay, so that is the small kind of security part: user creation, role creation, authorization objects, password reset, how to unlock, how to lock the users, copy the users, all those things you can perform it. So this much of knowledge is fine. Okay. So role, why? Because you don't need to much stretch on these areas. Because it's purely by their separate teams are there, so they will they will take care of all those things, but you don't need to worry about this all those things. Okay, but you should know some information about how we are logged into the SAP system, what is restricting us to log into the SAP system, why we are unable to access the transaction code, maybe authorization object, where to check SC50. So this much of knowledge is enough. Okay.